put Dotson in and let Gasper sit.
Yeah.
And
those are
put
young,
Miller in on the left side.
Those are two young guys, though.
Yeah, and
very
I think
young legs.
The big one that you guys both brought up, Griffin and David, I think would be Jan Gregers.
Well,
you
Jan,
could maybe expect to see him.
I think Jan has to be in New Mexico.
Yeah, I think he could anchor the midfield, and you could give Ozzy more rest.
Sure.
I don't see Ozzy playing against New Mexico, but I also think that because this game is at home against a USL championship team, it doesn't really matter who we put out.
Yeah, you're right.
But then again, Heath and the word trap game has been used, and we lost against New England.
That's right.
It's a real fear.
It is.
But I do think that it doesn't really matter who we put out against New Mexico at home.
Well, again, we don't know what he's going to do.
Right.
They
could put out the same lineup as they put out against Montreal.
We didn't see that coming.
Right.
And so what? We don't. You didn't see that coming. I mean, you have the bat phone of Heath, and you didn't see that coming. So,
right.
I mean, come on. So let's get out of this conversation because we could go on forever about it. Let's go on a transfer window because there are some players out there that we could possibly be looking at, but where do we need to fill any spots? Where do you guys think that? Griffin, I'll start with you because you're kind of the guest here. So go ahead.
So what's funny is a week ago, I would have said we need a backup striker.
Okay.
But with Toy playing as well as he is and kind of having the opposite qualities as Angelo does, I wouldn't think we would. I think the common things have been another left back and another winger because all of our wingers we have, and I know that goes back to the whole Minnesota, all they have is wingers, but Finley, Molino, and Ibarra are all historically right-wing players. Yeah. So I think there is a good chance that we could get a starting caliber left winger, whether it's an intra-league trade or from another team. But then I think that then presents even more challenges is who do we put in the starting lineup?
Yep.
Right.
And I also would say we need a left back, but Gasper plays well. Mettenera's coming back eventually.
Yeah.
Who knows? Madagascar's doing well.
Yeah.
But I do think we want to have the ability to put Dotson in his preferred defensive midfield position. Unfortunately, at this moment, that would make him probably not a starter.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he is a starting left back for the remainder of the season.
My biggest concern, and going off what you're talking about here, is my biggest concern, it has been all year. When we got all these new players in, I thought we were going to have issues in the beginning with communication because you're bringing a lot of new guys in. We kind of got to the point now where these guys are starting to work together. They're talking to each other. They're communicating. They're good on the pitch. If you bring one guy in to your starting rotation, how does it affect everybody else?
Right.
Can they come in and be good right away, or will they need some time to get used to everybody else? And during that time, are we going to have issues like we're going to lose a game because the winger didn't put a shot in because of whatever?
Is it as simple as saying competition breeds success, or you got players fighting now to get into that starting 11? Is that just going to improve the team by doing that?
What have I talked about this pod a lot is that in Major League sports in the United States, in Major League Baseball, you can bring in a DH. It doesn't matter because he's just going out there to hit. No big deal.
Right.
Football, you can bring in some guys. There's some communication, but you can bring in guys off the street. Basketball, NHL, same deal. Soccer is one of those sports where you bring a starting guy and plug him into your lineup. How do they work together?
Well, they work great. I mean, like we saw it last night. You bring in 7 new guys into your starting lineup.
Let's not talk about last night.
That is a complete fluke.
That's a fluke game.
We said that. I just had.
But my concern is if something happens where you bring in a new player and they just don't meld well with what we have going on.
And I think that concern is further exacerbated with bringing in players who have no MLS experience.
Exactly right.
Because I think even very good players who come into the league, whether it's Rooney, you had Lampard and Pirlo back with NYCFC, and they didn't win anything.
No.
So I feel like maybe these good European players, the retirement league players, come in and kind of underestimate MLS as a level of competition.
They do.
So I'd be curious to see if the moves that Minnesota United makes are within the MLS and have been talking to other teams, or if they're purely just scouting out-of-contract players who are in Europe or South America or what have you.
Yeah, and we should say that as we continue this discussion, the transfer window opened yesterday or today? I think
What's
it was
the date
7th. July 7th.
Today.
Yeah, so today. It's open for a month until August 7th.
And, I think we've talked about this in episodes past. You could use Angelo Rodriguez as an example. Last season, he never really made an impact.
He didn't click.
And now look at this season. His play has been significantly more beneficial to our performance.
He's doing what he's supposed to do.
And it's because he came in mid-season. He'd never played at MLS before. He had no idea what he was getting into. There was a lot of – what I noticed last year was a lot of he tried to do his hold-up play. He'd get knocked on the back of the head or in the back, and he'd still do what he could to bring the ball in, but he'd complain. He was getting used to the nuances of officiating, and it took him 12 games, 13 games to finally figure out how things work here. I would hope that it's all interleague.
Yeah.
Now, I tweeted out that there was that Mexican player
who was at the game.
Who was at the FCC game.
Yeah.
And no one even made any mention of it. But I was like, what the hell is a Liga MX player doing at a Minnesota United game a week and a half before the transfer window?
Yeah.
So I tweeted it out.
And he's a left back?
He's a left back.
Okay.
So, and now he has absolutely no statistical history to him, from what I could tell. Transfer market had nothing on him.
Yeah.
He apparently played for Leon. Apparently played for Club America, I think, youth system. But you have no data on him that I could find at all. So he would be one of those. Well, we're just going to bring him in for the hell of it to have some depth.
Yeah.
And I'd be curious what to see is the success rate versus bringing in transfers in the primary window before the season starts, and then the summer transfer window.
Yeah.
Like a list of the talent that you can see from before the season and summer. Because it seems like the summer transfer window is kind of designed to be a last-ditch effort to potentially save your season from being either embarrassing or pushing you over the line to become a playoff team.
Yeah.
And Minnesota United is a playoff team as they stand.
Yeah.
Like, there's no doubt about it. They have the ability to. Whether or not that happens, we'll see. But they do not need another addition to make the playoffs.
No, they don't.
This comes down to cohesion and coaching and the things we already have. So that's why I would think, if anything, like you were saying, these transfers probably are going to be for depth.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
They're not going to be all of a sudden Finley's on the bench and we have this amazing winger from Colombia or Venezuela.
Or we're going to bring in some $5 million number 10.
Right. We have 3 DPs. So we're not going to pay big money.
No.
And from what my understanding is, the rule is if you're going to buy down a contract for a designated... I think Angelo's salary of the DPs is the lowest, and there was rumors about buying his contract down. You have to then bring in a third to replace it.
You do.
You can't just at any time...
That's what Atlanta did.
Right. And that's something that could very well happen because the United have made moves to acquire GAM and TAM, like the move they made.
It's true. I mean, they're in really good financial situations.
Garber Bucks, yep.
Of course, Calvo's trade and then the exchange with, I think, LA Galaxy for GAM and TAM. So they do have money available to do exactly that.
Right. And you have to think, in my opinion, those moves are preparing for interleague shifts.
Right.
I think they're going to say, well, all right, here's 300,000 Garber Bucks for X player.
Right.
Garber Bucks. I love Garber Bucks.
So I was just looking at an article on MLS.com, and 10 secondary transfer window targets MLS teams should consider. So if I throw out names like Omar Gonzalez and Javier Hernandez, Chicharito, or Mesut Ozil, do those names do anything for you? Because that's maybe what that is, a name.
We don't need them right now.
We don't need them.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Mesut Ozil's name, of course, makes everyone excited.
Yes,
but Minnesota would never pay what a contract for him would entail.
Yeah,
right.
If you talk about it like a number 10, but just a few names, a few of them I don't recognize. But
Chicharito wouldn't make our team any younger.
Yeah, if you want to scroll through those. But
Diego Godin.
yeah, it's all pure speculation at this point,
Right.
and that's why I do agree with what we've seen in this team has depth. It's not something that it had last year in 2017, and now they have a little bit of depth, and it's been exciting to see the young guys, that they got in the draft, Dotson and Gasper. They're stepping up, they're playing, they're starting. It's been impressive. So.
And I think St. Clair's already shown that he's kind of the keeper of the future for the team.
Absolutely.
And so I think we got into the discussion a little bit. Are we going to see Vito Minone here next year?
Right.
I don't know, but the long-term answer is definitely Dane St. Clair.
Well, and I think maybe that means we're going to see a keeper signed mid-season. Because if we sign a keeper mid-season, a young guy, maybe like 25-ish, we're not expecting him to play. But Bobby's not going to hang around on the bench.
No.
In Madison, apparently.
Yeah.
Vito's on a loan. So maybe we will bring in somebody at keeper mid-season just to get him in the groove of being here.
Sure.
And I remembered hearing reports that Reading was kind of purging a lot of their contracts with players that they either had out on loan or had no interest in. So I think they were speculating that if Minnesota wants to keep Vito, they will definitely have that option.
And I think Minnesota would look into that.
Right.
Because I think
I
they
think
like
they will
Vito. I believe that when the season started, I always thought Vito was the 1-year stopgap for St. Clair. And
I
now
think he was supposed to be.
and maybe he's supposed to be. And now I'm thinking, well, if they can keep Vito, then maybe he's the 2-year stopgap for St. Clair. Give St. Clair a little more time. He's a young keeper. But like you said, David, I think that St. Clair's got enough talent where a couple years after he starts in MLS, he could be going to Europe.
I think he could too. I mean, obviously he's not really American; he's Canadian. But everybody that comes from this continent, I think, goalkeepers especially, have fared pretty well.
There's been a long history of that. and
Tim
even currently-
Howard. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, Guzan was over there, Keller was over there.
So I look at it like, if you can keep Vito, and I'm only saying this because he's Italian, so that's the only reason I like the guy.
Bit biased.
Yeah, bit biased.
I remember saying on an earlier preseason episode of this podcast that I think I said, you disagreed, but I said, I don't think you'd see Vito in the starting 11 on game one. You both disagreed. You both were correct. But he's been starting every game, did he?
Yeah,
Well-
he's the only player on the team
Yeah.
to start every MLS game this season.
But I think it had a lot to do with Bobby still being here, and we're like, well, how does Vito work with Bobby? How does that whole situation? Because I think we talked about them doing a kind of a dueling kind of goalies back and forth.
Yeah, I
And-
think we did. Yeah,
And to give St. Clair more time to kind of get used to MLS competition. But now I'm seeing them going, well, Bobby's, like I said, he's ghosted. I mean,
Yeah, I think Minnesota was looking to move Bobby out of the starting position pretty early in the offseason. I heard, I don't know where I heard this, but it was someone somewhat reputable talking about how there was a lot of issues with Bobby's performance, how I think there were players upset with the instructions he was giving them on the field.
Yeah.
And I'm just, from watching games, you can see Bobby yelling and screaming at players.
Did a lot of that last year.
Unfortunately, Carter Manley, especially last season, I just don't think that he was a leader, or I don't think that he was giving the team the instructions they needed, and I think they were looking for a reason to move on.
well, and the fact that he was one of the worst keepers in the league for distribution doesn't help.
Well, yeah, we'd have conversations about this last year. He had terrible distribution.
Yeah. He could
throw,
short pass it.
Short pass it. And there were
the
times
defense.
where like, oh my God, you're going to score a goal here because he did a stupid job of passing the ball out.
And I think the beginning of our second year in 2018 was a little bit of foreshadowing to that, because Lampson started the first few games.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Dunladi started over Ramirez the first couple of games. And a year later, we don't start.
Right. Yeah.
Ramirez is gone.
Gone, yeah.
And I think that starting that season, we're kind of like, here's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And now we brought in a somewhat expensive foreign keeper, which we know is a little bit risky in the league.
It is, but it works.
It's paid off.
Yeah. Right. So, close this all up, guys. I mean, do we believe that we're going to get guys in the transfer window who are like starters, or we think that's basically depth?
No, I think it'll be, as Griffin, you said, I think it'll be depth.
Starter quality, though, I want to say.
I don't even know if it's going to be starter
with
quality.
the Gammon